Designing a living room makeover can feel overwhelming, especially if you're not a pro. But today I'm going to show you exactly how I'm planning my whole living room makeover using a simple brief and mood board method. It's beginner friendly, super effective, and a first step to make sure that you create a space that actually reflects who you are. I'm Linnea, and I'm an architect on a mission to enable you to create a home that actually supports your well-being. So let's get started. To start this whole process, we need to lay the foundation, and that will be your makeover brief. Think of it as your North Star that will be guiding all of your design decisions that you will be making along the makeover process. And to create this brief, we need to ask ourselves 3 very simple but powerful questions. And the first question that we ask ourselves is, why are we doing this makeover? Then we need to ask ourselves, okay, in relation to this why, once the makeover is done, how do you want to feel in the space? And the last one is, what do you want and actually also need to be able to do in the space in terms of activities, functions, and so on. And the more specific your answers, the easier the process will become later on when you start to actually make design decisions. But I get it, these can be surprisingly difficult questions to answer. So I'll give you 3 tricks I use to get better insight. The first trick that I use is probably actually the most important one, and it's to allow yourself some time to answer these questions. Don't rush your answers. And one way to do that is that if you start by giving all the questions one answer one day, and then you sit with it and you just let it ponder in the back of your mind, and then 2 days later you come back to the questions and you look at them again and see, okay, well, would I change any of my answers, or would I like to add something to these answers? This kind of back and forth and iterative process really help us to move beyond our first impressions or thoughts of what we think we need or want, often very influenced by what we see on social media or what we hear our surroundings talking about. Another trick that I use to better understand, okay, what do I actually want to do or what do I need to be able to do in this space, is that I do at least week-long process of every evening taking a couple of moments to reflect and thinking about, okay, what have I done in this space today? How did I use it? Was there something I wish that I would have been able to do, but due to the current design wasn't able to? Or any other reflections that might have arrived about how I use or want to use this space. And after I've done that for at least a week, I look at all the information and I try to see, okay, what are the main patterns? Is there something that comes back over and over and over that I really miss a space for, a possibility to do something specific with? So that's a trick I use to better understand what do I actually need to be able to do. When you're exploring how you want to feel in the space, I really try to go beyond just writing the word, for example, calm or peaceful. So what I do to add to these words and create some more depth is that I try to think about, okay, where have I felt calm, or where have I been experiencing a peaceful atmosphere? Was it something in those experiences that had to do with the space itself? Or was it more about the people that I met, or a combination? And then I try to note down, okay, it was these things about the actual space that helped me feel calm. Because later on, when we make more design decisions, these descriptions can help us better understand what do you actually mean when you say calm. And when I did this exercise for my living room, these are the answers that I came up with in the end. Starting with the question of why. I'm renovating the space to create a home that supports my husband's and my own everyday well-being, while ensuring that the value of our apartment will be improved for a next owner. If we then move on to how both my husband and I would like to feel when we are living in this space, first of all, we want to feel calm, like standing on an empty beach, social, like being in my childhood kitchen where we used to gather around this big kitchen island, but also inspiring, like when I'm visiting some of my artist friends' home. And lastly, this is the list that we came up with when we try to understand how do we actually want and need to be able to use this space. So this is the brief that became my foundation and helped me guide all of my design decisions as I start to build the mood board. So let's move on to the mood board. So the mood board process is all about translating your brief into a visual representation that can help you understand what that brief actually means in terms of interior design. There are obviously many ways to do it, but I will show you how I go about it. And the first step is all about just collecting as much as possible of what makes you feel and think about your brief. So for example, this could be objects that you find around your house, or magazine clippings, or images from a book. It could also be more digital, like Pinterest, Instagram. We all spend hours there. But of course, it could also be color swatches, material swatches, or even art pieces that resonates with your brief in one way or the other. And at this point, don't overthink, don't try to be too specific or second guessing. If your gut is telling you this is what my brief says, then just collect it all. At this point, you want to go broad rather than being selective. And at this point, you have your big collection of images and objects that you are now going to revise into 3 different types of mood boards. And it's important to start with the first one before you go on to the second one and the third one. So let's begin with step 1. And step 1 is really about translating the brief into a general visual feel. So this point is where I use a lot of the artwork I collected, a lot of the more abstract objects or photographs of spaces that are maybe not necessarily a living room. And a way to do this is to first make one version, maybe 2 versions, 3 versions, wait a day, go back, add items, remove items, and after a couple of days of just going back and forth trying to create this vibe board, select one and then just stick with it, because this will, together with your brief, be your now even more specific guide for this design. So with that more broad vibe board, we want to become a bit more specific. So put your vibe board in front of you. It could be on a screen, it could be printed out, maybe you made it a physical version from the beginning, but keep it in front of you just like your brief, and then start to try collect more specific pieces. Like, I think I want a sofa that looks a bit like this, or I want a carpet that is about this size or this style. And here you can go close to what you want, or you can even say like, okay, I want this one and I want this one. Or maybe you have a lot of the furniture already, then take pictures of these furnitures and put that in this more specific mood board. A key part of this step is also to start narrowing down on color swatches and maybe other key materials like flooring or ceiling finishes, or what you might be thinking about for your space. And then you start to put it together. Maybe it's a grid mood board, just trying to get all the pieces in the same sphere. And after going back and forth again, all the iterations are important to nail down what you actually think. You have this slightly more specified mood board that I call mood board number 2. And with this completed, we move on to step 3, the final mood board, or even maybe design plan. You can be creative, but the idea in this situation is to be super specific. Like, okay, I'm putting the color I want on the walls in my drawing, in my collage, or in my floor plan together with elevation drawings. And I'm putting in my sofa with the direct and exact dimensions, proportions. Of course, if it's a collage, you might not measure the dimensions in the collage, but you want to be specific in terms of proportion. So this is the final stage where we're essentially pulling the whole design together in a visual before we start to realize it in the actual space. And yes, this can feel overwhelming, taking all these different steps only to design the space before you get started. But trust me, if you want that professional, cohesive design or look, this is what it takes. I'm not going to bullshit you. It does take a lot of work to really make sure you get a cohesive design. And if you work through all these steps over some time so that you can reflect back and forth, I promise you that you will feel so much more clear about what you're going for and why, and that will help you to make the decision when you stand in that thrift shop, okay, do I want this curtain or that curtain? You will know right away when you see it. But that was all for today's video. If you found it helpful or learned something new, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see how this room actually turns out, do subscribe to my channel so that you won't miss the coming videos where I bring you through the whole journey and transformation. Thank you so much for watching, and I see you in the next one.